Hey, here we are. All right, let's make a start. Kia ora koutou. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's externally funded projects committee meeting of Kaipara District Council. Today is the 9th of December 2021, and we've got a ripper of an agenda in front of us for today. So at this point, I'm going to open today's meeting with a karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapu pe namu te moana, hei ho rahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, araha atu, araha mai tātou I a tātou katoa. I would like to call at this point for apologies, and we have an apology from Councillor Jonathan Larson at this point, and I believe, Mr. Maris, we have apologies from Councillor Karen Joyce Paki also.
Correct, Your Worship, and I believe Councillor Wilson Collins. Oh no, she's there. Hi, not at all. My apologies.
With a smile, she's here with a smile. Yes. So, so all other elected members are present and accounted for. So, so I would like to move that those apologies be received and accepted, and I'm seeking a seconder for that, please. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Putting that to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Regarding the confirmation of today's agenda, I would like to move the confirmation of today's agenda as published, and I'm seeking a seconder for that. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. Is there any commentary on this? No commentary, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. There's our agenda for today. Regarding item number 1.4, conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest, elected members, regarding any of the items on today's agenda? No conflicts of interest. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to section number 2 of today's agenda, which is the minutes, the confirmation.
Sorry.
Oh, Councillor Will, sorry.
Please record my my interest in the Kaihu Valley Trail, please.
Okay, certainly. Sorry, Councillor Will. So in regarding the conflict of interest declaration, so we would like an interest of Councillor Wills to be noted here. It's not a conflict of interest, but an interest regarding the Kaihu Valley Trail to be recorded there for Councillor Wills. Thank you. So we're moving on to section 2 and the confirmation of the open minutes of the externally funded projects committee meeting of Wednesday, the 17th of November, 2021. Now, I'm seeking a mover for this. Councillor Vincent, thank you for moving this, and then Councillor Curnow for seconding this. Yes. Is there any commentary on the minutes at this point? No commentary on the minutes. Thank you. So I'm going to put this to the vote now that these are a true and accurate record of the 17th of November committee meeting. So all those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Lovely. So we're moving on to the first of our substantive projects for today for discussion, which is the Kaihu Valley Trail. Of course, our fantastic project, overall project and program manager today, Joanne Reid, is joining us now. And Joanne, please, I'd like you in a moment to take over the Kaihu Valley Trail, but at this point, I'd like to move the noting of this report, and I'm seeking a seconder for this at this point to put it onto the table. Councillor De La Varis Woodcock, thank you. Thank you, Joe. Over to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora, good afternoon. Thank you. So as per usual for this committee, we'll take all of the reports as read, and I'll just provide the verbal updates for anything that's moved from when the report was written. For Kaihu Valley Trail, we have now temporarily removed the dock sections of the trail from the consent application. For clarity, that is separable sections 1 and 2 on the map. So they have now been removed from the consent in order for us to be able to progress with that consent application and ensure that we begin physical works early in the new year. The consent itself is currently being reviewed by the Commissioner. So it's in its final stages, and that review takes place naturally given it as a KDC consent. So we're confident that we should receive that, all going well, prior to Christmas, which puts us in a good position. In all likelihood, it would be section 5 of the route, which will be started first. That's what the team are proposing at this point in time. That is with the caveat that they are still working through some of the details. And so that may well flex, but that's how things are looking at this point in time, just to set expectations. The tender for the Bridges contract is closing this month. So we'll look to have that awarded early January. We have had a slight change of direction for our earthwork contractor. The earthwork contractor who had been aligned to this project since its inception, really, has recently notified us that they no longer look to progress with that piece of work. And so they're going in a different direction. So the team are just currently working through what alternative solutions in the market are for that earthworks piece. We do believe we've got a potential solution in place, and so we'll just be working through the procurement strategy for that over the next week or so to ensure we have something lined up for early in the new year. So while it's an issue and an unforeseen, it's definitely not a red at this point. I think it's an amber with a clear plan as to how we progress with the works early in the new year. Regarding I've received a couple of questions through from elected members prior to today's committee. So just to clarify on that as well, regarding the landowner engagement and support for the trail, I'd received a question just looking for a bit more information as to, how true that risk was and what we could do to mitigate it. From the records that the project team has, we have 113 landowners along the trail that are either directly affected or adjoining the corridor. Currently, 102 out of that 113 agree in principle to the trail itself. We have registered that we've got 6 who do not agree in principle, and we have 3 who we've not been able to engage with yet out of that 113, and 2 who have confirmed they do not want the trail to go ahead. So on a numbers basis, things are very favourable. Needless to say, there's still a lot of conversations to be had. The 6 landowners who do not agree in principle, it's due to a variety of different reasons around loss of property and around additional foot traffic.
Sorry, Joe.
Can you still hear me? No.
No.
Yeah.
Can you just rewind 20 seconds, please?
Okay. So of the 6
To
who
the
do not
numbers.
agree in principle?
Yes, you said about
Yeah.
the 6 who don't agree in principle. So from there, could you just carry on again? Thank you. No. 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 No.
Speak for us, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Ah, thank goodness. There we go. Okay. So
No.
Can I suggest that you drop your video, perhaps, Joe, and just go by audio if that works for the meeting? Sorry, through the chair. It might be just the bandwidth for your.
I'll see if
Just a
I can
suggestion.
swap the internet. 1 second. Oh dear.
You're looking better, Joe.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Is that
Very much
Yes.
clearer sound-wise. Thank you. Yes.
okay? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I think internet problems. Who knows? I'll pick up from the 6 landowners who do not agree in principle to the trail. Is that a good point to
Yes, please. Exactly
carry on
that.
from?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So of the 6 who don't
No. No, there must be something in that message that you've
We're
got.
really not supposed to know those
You're
reasons.
not supposed to know this, but it's just about those 6 people. There's some hoodoo on those 6, maybe. No, I don't know. I'm very hopeful that Joe will be able to join us by sound connection only. It is possible, Joe, if you could turn off your camera and just
sure
have
if I've came back in now or not. Have I?
so we can hear you and see you. Perhaps if you turn off your camera, please.
I will do that. Okay. So yes, as mentioned, it's due to a variety of reasons: losing privacy, concerns around increased foot traffic, and vandalism risks along the trail. So there are discussions that the project team are having with each of these landowners to try and mitigate concerns and find a win-win solution for everyone involved. Another question which I received prior to today's committee was just looking for more information around the Tilt Renewables sponsorship, which is mentioned in the report. Now, the Tilt Renewables, it's a possible sponsorship first and foremost, so it's not confirmed at this point in time. Just to be clear as well, Tilt Renewables is actually now known as Mercury Energy, so you might hear the 2 names being used interchanging, but it is one and the same. We are still in discussions with Mercury Energy, who have suggested that they would be able to support the trail in some way. So we've started working through what a sponsorship contract could look like for that. And that's something that the team are working through over these coming months, just to refine it. So it's a watch this space at this point in time. And I'll leave it there, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a first question from Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock.
Yes, regarding the, I guess it's picking up from the issue of the 6 unconvinced of the wonderful benefits of this trail, and the intersection of that with the DOC endorsement. Is that the same challenge that we're facing of landowner lack of positivity?
The 2 landowners who are against the trail in its entirety, both are on DOC portions of the land. So yes, there's a correlation there regarding what's been removed currently.
So I'm understanding that DOC own the title, and that the infrastructure the Crown owns, or Kaiwaka District Council has administration powers over the actual trail itself. Is that correct?
So there's currently a legal discussion going on between DOC and the landowners themselves, investigating just that situation.
Right. Okay. So so would I be right, Joe, that this issue of legal road or public works utility corridors is kind of like to be expected in the context of this project? Contests about use restrictions, or so from my understanding is that the principle of legal roading access, or if this is a similar parallel being a rail corridor, is that while the access bisects private property, there's a tension of use where the landowner has a right to uninterrupted, undisrupted activity and use of their land, but that also comes up against equal inalienable rights of access by the public.
So there have been some questions raised by landowners across the trail regarding the land owned by KDC and the legalities surrounding that. So that is something that the team have investigated, and they have sourced the relevant documentation to show that it was all sourced through a legal transaction. And so it is all legitimate in this case. As to whether or not it's something to be expected on these sorts of projects, I could only speak from my opinion on that, to be honest.
Thank you. So I guess with the sign, you know, I like the picture and everything, but I'm thinking that while there is still a work in progress about routes, is that kind of impacting the design of any sign, or?
Yes, so the key word in the description under that sign imagery is it's draft at this point in time, and very much so. So it's there to give a sample of what the collateral supporting the trail could look like, but it's still to be finalised.
Right. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, questions for clarification?
I just wondered if you could give us a bit of a expansion on the information on the dock portions and how long that may or may not take to resolve, and sort of level of risk with those.
Yeah.
So I've just come out of audit and risk meeting, so risk is kind of in my head.
Front of mind. Yep, no, happily. So it's sections 1 and 2 on the map that have been removed from the scope right now. As to how long it will or will not take for this issue to be resolved between DOC and the landowners, unfortunately, that's a bit of a how long's a piece of string, as especially with it being a discussion of legal nature. KDC have done a review and we're confident with our standing around it. But it's very much a discussion that sits between DOC and the landowners themselves. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with the Ministry of Business regarding this very matter. And we were discussing, just what we would do if we are at a point unable to add the other components in. And whilst it would naturally be a shame not to be able to do the full 36 kilometres as intended on the trail, the ministry were quite open to the challenges that we're facing, and that they want to see a trail of some value and some use across the Kaiwaka. And so we would be able to kind of reassess that at the time when we know what we're looking at as to whether we go in a different direction, whether we upgrade different areas, or whether just what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And question from me, Joe. Look, it's in the same piece of the map. So just for clarity, absolute clarity, the separable portion 2, if you're coming from the northern end, it stops before, if you like, and I'm going to say the Kaihu Tavern, the Kaihu Village. Or, yeah?
Yes, I believe the section 2 is around that area. Yes.
So I'm just trying to be specific. So if you were to say, right, run up the trail to the top of separable portion 3, you would get to Kaihu Village.
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah? Not you would nearly get. So we're not creating the nearly Kaihu Valley Trail. We're actually still getting to, at this point, to Kaihu.
That's correct. Yes. So separable portion 3 takes it up to Kaihu. Okay,
thank you. I'm just trying to be clearer on the map, because the the blobs and so on are quite large. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Certainly the situation sounds complex. The second thing is regarding inseparable portion 4, regarding taita marae and the choosing of the route. We still have 2 optional routes indicated on this map. So it doesn't appear to have landed yet where the preferred route is, whether it's along the riverbank or along the railway and the road. So can you please elaborate on that point and when that may be likely to be finalized so we have a final route?
Yeah, so the engagement happened with Taita Marae, I think just over a month ago now. Kaihu was held at the Marae to discuss the trail. Since then, the team has been largely focused around this consenting issue and the dock issue. So as to where we are regarding the route and the impacts from an engineering perspective as well, I don't believe that's progressed at this time. So I would expect to see an update around that in this coming month, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Wills, question for clarification.
It's not a question, but I can answer your question.
Okay. Thank you.
2 points. The first one that was raised, sorry, I'll be really quick, but it saves a lot of conversation. The challenges on the access is to do with the fact that part of the railway was taken under the Works Act, Public Works Act, and that allows them, because it's got a water main down it, that's why it gives them a right to continue with this as a council property, and they have the rights to manage it. There's parts of the railway track that were never taken under the Public Works Act, and therefore they're being challenged as to who has ownership. I just want to quickly answer that question. The question you've raised about the Taita is the reason that that's now still got various options is that part of that runs through a property I own, and there's been a misunderstanding as to where that track is due to go. They've made several efforts to go. The Marae has said it won't go past their cemetery. I'll be really quick. They tried to go across the road. The people on that side of the road said they wanted to be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to give right-of-ways, so that was no longer feasible. They've now come back to the riverbank as a potential way, because there's never an original discussion, but it is currently being surveyed by the, please you can help me out here, Joe. It is currently being surveyed with drones at the moment, but there's been no agreement with any landowners around Taita, including they looked at one option of going out to Opunake Road through Dairylands to just try and get around that marae. So that the hold-up is in that marae area and between the highway and the river. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that extra information. All right. All right, are there further questions for clarification of Joe? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. If you can just stand down for a second. Right, so statements. Kaihu Valley Trail, this is seems to be making progress, seems to be stalled in parts. It's a highly complex project involving many people and property rights and promotion opportunities and tourism and thousands of different players and thousands of different moving parts. We're still seeing that complexity working out here. It's just distressing to see this written report that regarding schedule is red flagged at this point. So I'm very hopeful that in the new year and by the time there is the next of these meetings that we have real progress here. But it certainly is a great year, and there has been a lot of progress in the year to date on this work and incredible work that's been done and achievements, but it's just not quite landed yet, and I'm extremely disappointed about the situation with Doc, but understand all of the complexities there. Thank you. That's from me. Thank you, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. Seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm an optimist by nature. I am displeased by this report. I'm dissatisfied with the lack of foresight for those obstructive landowners, I'll use that word. I understand the tension, and I understand, you know, that people have to get on and do what they've been doing uninterrupted. But I just see so many benefits, and, you know, a lift of everybody's greater well-being, because we just don't have anything like this this project, which has such possibility and such potential. So, you know, from the fact that we're all stuck here in New Zealand, we can't go anywhere, and New Zealanders, we want to see our country. It's such a beautiful valley. I lived in the Kaihu Valley there at Rotu for 3.5 years when my sons were little, and I was the president of the Kaihu Valley Play Centre. To me, that this valley is the centre of the universe. It is such an imposing, mighty presence of Tutamoi, that maunga, and then there's the awa, and there's a beautiful Kaihu village where my husband and my sons have played rugby. You know, I have great love and feeling for this whole thing, and I guess that's why I put my you know, I put my vision in there, and just I wish it the well. I wish it all the best. I refuse to be pessimistic, and I'm sure that people are just going to come round, and we're all going to get together and make this happen. So thanks, Joe, for your wonderful work, and I can see this is probably one of your headachy projects. So yeah, kaha.
Thank you. Further statements from elected members here. Councillor Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to speak to some misconceptions on that trail. The biggest hold up to progress is that marae. It's not the white landowners or Pākehā landowners or whatever you want to call them. And in my case, I have actually offered them complete access up the railway track at Maitahi, but they at this stage don't want to use that because they can't get past that marae. And as I explained earlier, they can't cross the road at an economical cost. So at the moment, the council is, or sorry, not the council, the cycleway progress is stuck halfway along section 4. They don't want to use their preference at this stage is not to go along the railway track because they can't get past a bottleneck in it. And I want to make that quite clear because I feel it's misunderstood, please. And so progress is being made, but there's a lot of historic cultural issues that have been raised by those communities with regard to the benefits to them. And I can't speak for them, but I'm just saying it's not just farmers that are causing difficulties and holdups.
Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now regarding the noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. 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 Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So we're moving on now to the second of our reports for today, which is the Kaiwaka footbridges project. So I'm seeking Councillor Wethy, a mover here. Councillor Wethy, thank you. And a second to Councillor Curnow. Wonderful. So that's now onto the table. Joe, hoping you're able to join us now to a project with lots of green lights. Kia ora, Joe. Reid. Tracy Dean, excuse me, have we lost Joe Reid?
Your worship, it looks like she's actually there. I'm just not quite sure why we're not hearing her. Her signal looks good. Not quite sure. I'll just see if I can find out anything for you.
Thank you.
She's gone.
Gone now.
Yes, Your Worship, looks like she might go out and see if she can come back in. Might be that she's her system hung or something. So let's just see how that goes for a moment. And she's back. Are you there, Joe?
I am. I've just came back in. Sorry if my computer dropped
Excellent.
out again.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Please carry on.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we're on Kaiwaka footbridges. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So for the Kaiwaka footbridges, all tracking well on this project, very much on track for completion in March. We have recently confirmed as well the colour of the bridges themselves will be green. And early next year, so early January, in fact, you can expect to start seeing some piles and foundations being installed at both the sites, following which the southern bridge will actually be craned into place. So it could be an interesting time to be in Kaiwaka. Other than that, nothing more to add, thank you.
Fantastic. Are there questions from elected members at this point about the Kaiwaka footbridges? No questions. Wonderful. So we're going directly to statements. Councillor Wethy.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think this project's going very, very well. Well done to the team, Tim and Joe and all the rest. I'm very interested in this new thermal spray that they're applying to the bridge trusses for, you know, something less than $12,000 to get an extra 10 to 15 years life out of those bridges. Seems like a pretty good investment as far as the council's concerned. So that's a great initiative, and whoever came up with that, I think, deserves a medal. So just keep the progress going, Joe. Make sure they hit their milestones, and we should have a nice opening early in the new year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Curnow. Thank you.
Just to reiterate the great progress. It's lovely when you open a report and it's all green like that. It's just gives you that little glow that we don't often get in this business. I just wonder, sort of looking through the report, whether there's an opportunity just to do some comms to the community via Facebook or something like that, just to let the community know where things are at. Does say community engagement, nothing planned, and I just wonder whether one little update before Christmas, just to let everyone know that we're all on track. It's looking good. Yeah, the bridge will be green and our status is all green.
Yeah, okay. That's clear. Thank you. Here's to green lights. Are there further statements from elected members here? No further statements. No further statements. Right. So we'll move on. We'll bring this to the vote now. The noting of this report regarding the Kaiwaka footbridges with all its green lights. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against. Carried. Thank you. Moving right along to the Mangawhai shared path, also in the east of the district, and Councillor Wethy moving this, and I'll second this. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So for phase one of the Mangawhai shared path, there's, as you know, the team have been trying to achieve a completion of the works prior to Christmas to avoid any impact over the busy period within Mangawhai. Unfortunately, there's been some challenges around that, mainly due to the nature of the market right now. We've seen issues across the industry with the supply of concrete in particular. And quite limited resource availability, which has resulted in a delay of getting the materials needed for completion of the intersections. It's not a significant delay, but it just impacts things in relation to completion prior to Christmas. So what the team is now doing is working through to ensure that there's no major disruptive traffic control in place from that Christmas time onwards. So ensuring that we're really working with the local community. I can confirm that from midday on the 23rd of December up until the 17th of January, the project team have confirmed that there will be no traffic control in place. So they won't be restricting flow through that area at all. From the 18th of January onwards, they will then have most likely some shoulder closures in place at the intersections, and the lights will be back in place at Molesworth Drive. But that's on the assumption that by that point the traffic and thoroughfare is cut down quite a bit. Needless to say, as with, I mean, from the beginning of this project, it's been very agile around its plans to work with the community, and that's something it will continue to do, especially over the busy period, even leading up to Christmas. So we've got that very front of mind. Regarding phase 2, we are still awaiting the formal confirmation of funding from Whakatahi for phase 2. We are still progressing the detailed design, and that should be completed quite soon. And the next step following that will be to apply for a resource consent. But that would be at a time when we've had that funding fully confirmed as well, and we know that it's a stable project. There's no reason to believe that the funding isn't secure. We're just awaiting on that confirmation coming through. For phase 2, therefore, now working through the procurement strategy as well for this phase, which is where the project team's head is currently at. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Councillor Withy, question for
Yeah, a couple of questions, please, Joe. Firstly, just clarify for me, during the busy holiday season from that 21st of December to the 17th of January, obviously the roundabouts at the village will be clear because they're just about, I just come through those this morning. But the strip along Molesworth Drive, north of the Causeway Bridge, which has still got a single lane from Seabreeze up to the ITM store, is that'll all be two-way, won't it, during the holiday season?
That's my understanding. Yes, if there's no traffic management in place, it would need to be two-way. Yeah. Okay,
well, I certainly hope so, because that would just about be intolerable with doubling up of the volumes of traffic. So the other question I had was, and this is going to your open project risks, and you're already flagging the design stage estimates indicating something of a $2.5 million increase, which is sort of 35% increase in the project cost. Now, I accept that that's only an estimate and it's subject to quite a lot of rigorous scrutiny, but that's a significant jump. Can you comment and give us a bit more confidence that, that we might be able to improve on that? Because I don't know where we're going to go if it's anything like that in terms of getting the additional funding.
Yeah, so from conversations with Tim around it, the likelihood of it being quite the 2.2 seems to be quite small. There is definitely the risk of it being over what's currently budgeted. That will be confirmed once we have that detailed design locked in as well. So right now it's a bit of an unknown number. As to the reasons behind that and the reasons why, it's a bit of a combination of factors around the complexity of the actual design itself in that particular area, and then the actual cost of materials and the cost of labour resources all having increased really quite significantly over the past year.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, I have a question, and it is on page 26 of the agenda. And so it's we're looking here at the activities going forward, and we're talking here about we're going to say the village shops and the roundabouts there. And it says targeting completion before Christmas. So I've been physically on site there and keeping very, very close with it, and the progress in recent weeks has been phenomenal. And I'm just after the simple definition of the word completion that you're going for here, and when will that be?
The full completion, I believe, will not be until after Christmas now, from where we stand with the project. As to exactly what point we will get it up to, what I'll do is I'll actually reach out to Tim, if that's okay, Your Worship, and get his more specific feel on exactly where we'll get to. Is that okay?
Thank you. That would be very, very good, because of course the population is going to swell significantly from the 15th. The weekend of the 17th, 18th, 19th is just going to go berserk for Mangawhai. So it's kind of what state is it all going to be in, specifically in the village. The other parts of the route are a different thing, but that shopping precinct in the village and the disruption for the community, I'm very, very anxious that disruption is minimized. And so where the report says targeting completion, but I'm just trying to get to, does it mean plants in the dirt, or does it mean definitely no dirt but all the pavements in place and all the road cones are gone and the new alignment is there for everyone to work with? Paint on the ground stuff. All right, we'll go to Councillor Curnow for a further question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to touch on the final is it risk or issue? The final issue, which is on page 29, with regards to the use in the community park as fill for under the path, the shared path. Do you have any more information on that, just as to its suitability for that? Because obviously there's potential risks in doing that, so I'm really interested in knowing more about that.
Yeah, so the approval to reuse that land or that materials is still pending. So it has not yet been confirmed that it's suitable for use. And it will only be used once that formal approval has been received and it's deemed safe for the area.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Councillor Withy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, well, the project is certainly rushing along, and I think in spite of the fact that we're having a few hiccups, like this morning, the sensors on the traffic lights weren't all working as they should, and there were some substantial hold-ups. The community at large have recognised the speed of the project and how United Civil have really pulled out the stops. And so while there's a bit of grumbling, there's not really the outrage that you could probably normally expect people to sort of create if under normal circumstances. So I think the United Civil have done an excellent job of keeping them, particularly the business owners, communicated with the progress. Talking to some of the shop owners a week ago after there'd been a lot of disruption, and I thought they would have been up in arms. No, all they could do was say they're doing a fantastic job. We all know what's happening and all the rest of it, which just shows you the value of communications, which we keep on talking about in our other projects. So I'm sort of being optimistic that we're going to have. We might not have, as the Mayor would hope, every road cone removed by the time the holiday season starts. What I'm interested in is making sure there's no impediment to traffic moving around that area, and so that everything can move through, and there'll be plenty of easy access for pedestrian traffic around those businesses that have actually suffered quite badly over the last 3 or 4 months. So I'm sure that everyone on the project team will be pulling out the stops to meet those targets, and I'm confident that providing we don't get any adverse weather that could slow down the project time frame, that we'll get to where we want to go before Christmas. So good luck, Joe and the team, and because I'll tell you what, we're going to see, as the Mayor says, a tsunami of people arriving from the 15th of this month, and everyone's girding themselves for that. What we don't know, and this again impacts on the Moya Street shops there in the village, is I don't think a decision finally has been made yet on Northern Base. Northern Base, don't underestimate the significance that has on both Wood Street and Moya Street shopping centres. For that 3-day period, it is huge. So if we have Northern Base on, it's very much a need to keep that. Any congestion roadblocks, if you like, for both traffic and pedestrians, and particularly the village, are going to be a problem. So let's hope we get through it. But I don't know whether the mayor, have you heard whether the northern base is proceeding yet?
No, I have not. No further confirmation or discussion on it, really. No.
No, I've heard a few rumours that it's sort of a bit in, yes or no. They're not too sure of what. I think they're waiting until about the 15th before they make their final decision. But apart from that, no, it's good progress, and well done to the team.
Through the chair, I'll just say that coming up to the council meeting are alternative dates that Northern Base has proposed, just in case they have to postpone the concert. So that's coming to the next council meeting. But they're still, they're not making a decision, you're right, you're correct, until the government makes the next traffic light decision.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. A quick statement from me. The speed of the work has with the roundabouts has exceeded my expectations during this spring period. It has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm very optimistic that this will land really well. It's also an extraordinary piece of work as well, as a fast piece of work. Utterly transformative for the flow of traffic in Mangawhai for today and henceforth forever and ever. It is a different place with this project, and I'm delighted to see that. The second thing is I'm very much looking forward to the Waka Kotahi announcement that hopefully will be coming any day as a bonus Christmas present for Kaipara District Council regarding the funding that they've indicated that we may be able to get here for the other parts of this shared path. So fingers crossed for all of that, and congratulations to Tim and the team for this extraordinary pace of achievement here. And I bet that all the Aucklanders who come back will be greatly surprised at the place when they arrive from the 15th. So so the Facebook buckets will be open for heaps of praise, he says. Yeah, for the council. Looking forward to that. Bravo, everybody. Thank you. That's from me. Are there further statements, elected members? No further statements. Thank you. So we're putting the noting of this report to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So we're moving on now to the unsealed roading network.
I'd like to move that, Mr. Mayor.
So Councillor De La Varis Woodcock is moving the unsealed roading network update, and Councillor Wills is seconding this. Thank you. So Joe.
Thank you. So for the unsealed roading network, we now have 70 kilometre of road completed to date. So that's jumped up by 15k in the past month, which is a good indication of what you can expect to see over these coming months as well, now that we're into the drier season. You'll notice in the report, Bernard has included some additional information and data for you all. So one of which is just showing an illustrative example of the ground penetrative radar machinery, which is now being used. The team, to I suppose illustrate why this is such a significant thing for the project, ordinarily using the traditional manual method to test eroding of using test pits, you would be able to do, excuse me, around about 1 kilometre per day of assessment. This GPR can complete approximately 100 kilometre of the network in one day. So a complete game changer for understanding the conditions and the build, the makeup of the existing road. The RIP and remake approach, which we've discussed previously in this committee, to confirm as well, the nature of this method of works means that it will be done solely on low volume roads. So it will only actually be applied to a very small portion of the roads in this programme of works. You'll notice at the end of the report as well, there's an additional graph showing the road status, so the numbers that have been designed, completed, currently in progress, and those not yet started. And also a breakdown of the contractor claims to date, and also just in the past month, to give an indication of just where the funding is currently being spent, where that's being allocated out. I'll leave it there, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a technical question, and it's with your ground penetrating radar. Something quite like a toy. Looking at the charts on page 42 of the agenda, just the way I'm reading it, because I don't know what I'm looking at here. If you look at the left wheel path, which is the lower of the two, right? And then you see the, if you like, the red line that's across the top of the profile. So what we're actually looking at basically is the road profile. Is that right? And so is that the surface?
So both of the lines are illustrating the depth. As to what RWP and LWP specifically mean, it's annotated just at the top there. So
yes,
your
it
left
is.
wheel path, right wheel path.
But what we're seeing is that in that, or say nearly halfway along the left wheel piece, where it seems to flatline very near the surface, what that tells us is that in that place the road depth is very, very shallow. Is that correct?
It would be very consistent, I believe, actually. So the depth would be remaining the same as opposed to the divots where you're seeing where there's variations in depth. That's my interpretation of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And all right. Thank you. And so how much of the road is going to get this radar over it?
I understand they'll be using it whatever they can now for the remainder of the programme, now that they have access to it. As said, the benefits of how much of the network they can actually cover is really quite significant.
Thank you very much. Okay, clear. I think it's very, very cool. Evidence-based policy. Yeah. Further questions from elected members? No further questions. Thank you. Statements. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock.
Yes. So, kei te mihi ki a koe te minita Shane Jones. I saw a picture of the Waipua River Road blessing, and I saw the former Minister Shane Jones crouching there on the road, and I thought I'd open my statement with an acknowledgement of the $8 million of the Provincial Growth Fund that has enabled this unsealed road network improvement. So bringing government funds to Kaipara, where we've desperately been neglected for so long, and so I'm noting in this report that there is 10%, only 10% left that is not underway or not started yet in the specific roads that are going to be or have been or in the process of being improved. So yeah, it's great to see all those photos that show the, I don't know, the scale, the big scale of the works, including the one that jumped out for me, the Golden Stairs Road cutting water tabling with the large rocks. So all in all, I just want to say I feel grateful as a gravel road driver, and I acknowledge this and express my gratitude. And I think that I'd like to say also that if there's any residents and constituents out there listening, to maybe share in some of my gratitude for the works that are getting done, because it's all too easy to take our council for granted and our services for granted, and circumstances in the world have taught me that we are remiss when we do that. There is so much work behind the basic services that we all need. So great to make a positive statement about this. Thank you, Joe, for your work.
Thank you, Councillor Wills.
Yeah, I'll keep mine just to the practical outcomes. It's been great to see the improvement in the metal roads. There have been some issues with the initial roads that were done while they were learning, and just the response of those road surfaces during the winter. And also good to see that there's been an increased focus on the water tables and that, because some of us that have lived on metal roads, that's where a lot of our road surface ends up in the drains and that, and culverts and blocks them. So there's been a real effort to try and improve that loss or reduce that loss of metal. So and it's great to see this investment in the community. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Are there further statements? Yeah, quick statement from me is that this is a very well managed project. Of course, it has been from the absolute outset. It is the shining centre of the Kaipara Kickstart and all of these projects that we have which are externally funded, and it is quite right that it is so, because of course basically the council is a roading company. And half of everything that happens regarding ratepayer dollars is with roads, but this money is totally a bonus. So I think it's extraordinary how we're getting amazing value from the Northern Transportation Alliance, which we would not have been able to achieve the outcomes that appear to be coming through if we didn't have that greater strength and capacity of a regional team. So I'd just like to thank everybody for this. The photos are thrill. The roads to be driving on are greatly improved. We've still got a long way to go, but gosh, what a difference it's making. And so the fears that this money was going to just go down the gurgler proved to be unfounded. So I'm very, very happy with how this is tracking as of right now. Yep. Are there any further statements? Councillor De La Varis Woodcock, closing statement if you wish.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So we'll put this to the vote now. The noting of this unsealed road network report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Kaiwata. So I'm seeking a mover for this item, Councillor Curnow, thank you, and a seconder for this, Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So the good news being we do now have both sites planted for the Kaiwata project. So site 1 was planted on the 26th of November. It was actually planted by hand by various different members of the Toroa team. And quite a large amount of local children as well. From what I've heard, those that were there, it was really quite a gorgeous day. A lot of mahi involved, and we managed to plant the whole site within 2 hours, quite impressively. And for site 2, it was planted on the 24th of November, and this site was done by machine, with the exception of the beetroot seed, which was too small for the machinery and therefore was done manually. Results had already been seen with a couple of the crops already propagating within the space of 7 days, which is quite remarkable. You may have seen a media release went out last week, which contains some photos and a general update around the progress on both these sites. Some of the real nice progress being that the kangama crop and the soybean crop, both having done so well in that first week. Kangama in particular was the crop which was actually chosen by the community as part of that voting process, which our communications team ran. So all of the information around the planting plans, soil fertiliser, everything like that is all being uploaded onto the Kaipara Kickstart website. And we do now also have a videographer out on both sites shooting materials, and we'll be running short video clips through the comms channel to continue to tell the story of Kaiwata and ensure that we are really pushing out the learnings. The site visits / community events, which were intended to take place this month for both sites, in reflection of the current COVID environment and traffic light situation, and also the delays in the planting themselves, we've discussed and agreed with the Ministry of Business that we will be postponing these events until early in the new year, provisionally towards the end of February, but that will be confirmed as we understand more around the status that Northland will be at that point in time. So in the interim, the team's just really prioritising ensuring that we're using various different media outlets where we can to share the knowledge and share the learnings and tap into local landowners. And that's all, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I have a question. So on page 58, you have the table showing the planned trial crops for the season. We have, of course, we've had the wettest October, November in decades recently, and many of the planting dates were delayed, and in fact almost delayed into December for cropping. One of the question that I have, and the key question that I have, and it's a repeated question from last time, is we don't need irrigation to start any of the crops in the spring. It rains, it continues to rain, the soil moisture is lovely, and it's a beautifully abundant time of the year. The question that we have is how to get a second crop on the same piece of land after the first crop is harvested. So we're talking here about January, February, March. Where are we going there? This question has been asked before. And so the question again is, how are we going to be using the water to prove and test water use for a whole new type of crop in with these huge investments that are going in of water infrastructure? Because I don't see that here yet. It was indicated at the November meeting, and now it's gone from the reports.
The planning around the second cycle on both sites, to call it that, I think, as mentioned before in the committee sessions, once this first cycle was planted and in the ground was when the team would then turn their head to the second cycle to understand just what that looked like. Bearing in mind a few weeks ago as well, we were even looking at the situation of, do we do the current cycle right now, or do we actually just postpone it until later? So having just been able to get that planting take place just slightly over a week ago, now is when the team will start to look at, okay, what's that second cycle, and also what are the early learnings from this first one that can be applied into the second, and again prioritising the diversity of the crops. But it was something that was always only going to be being looked at once we had dealt with the immediate issue of getting that first cycle in the ground.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's clear. Thank you. Clear answer. Are there further questions for clarification, Councillor Curnow?
Yes, thank you, Joe. I'm really interested in what you were saying about the planting at site 1 being done by hand and involving lots of children. And I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity perhaps with the second planting when the schools are back again to look at maybe involving more, sort of including more schools in what's going on, because the learning of those children will help to educate the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very, very good call out. It's something I'll definitely raise with the team, see if we can, what that could look like. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Statements. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wethy, question, sorry.
Yeah, just picking up on that point about the planting by the children, Joe. Has anyone gone back and just done an audit check to see whether the the quality of the planting is up to scratch. And I raise that because this is a trial. It's like a research trial. And when you do any trial and you lay out the parameters of that trial, you've got to put down a matrix that looks at every potential thing that could influence the end result. And I'm just saying here, by bringing in children to do the planting, you've introduced something that was probably not originally factored into the overall trial. So I've got no problem with the kids planting it out. That sounds a good idea, but it's a matter of making sure that someone goes over and reviews and looks at all that so they can put a big tick and say there's nothing in the planting that is in any way going to compromise the end result. So I'm just asking the question, is that being reviewed and audited?
So specifically with the lens of who done the planting, I don't know if we've been that particular with it, but the planting itself was all overseen and managed by Northland Inc. So they have a full overview of all of the planting that took place in partnership with Te Roroa. So I believe we should be comfortable that it's been done to the appropriate standards.
Let's hope so, yeah.
All right, thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? If not, Councillor Curnow, statement, please.
Yes, I just want to congratulate the team for getting that first crop into the ground. That when I read the report and saw that it still hadn't happened, my heart sank and my heart rose again when you started your report with the fact that we do have the planting in. So that's really exciting. I think a key thing about this project is it's a demonstration. There are two demonstration sites. So the project lives and dies on how well the community actually engages with the project and how well people are aware of it and interested and willing and having their curiosity sort of spiked so that they can go to their own sections and their own land and look at what else they might do there. So yeah, I'd really encourage as much engagement as possible on this. And yeah, it does sound like the team is really into that. But yeah, just keep pushing that message that here is something new and here is how it's working, the process, the technology and the outcomes. Yeah, really important. So thank you, team.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement.
Thank you. Yeah, just concurring with Deputy Mayor Curnow there and her congratulations. I was lucky enough that I saw the media release, so I didn't get a shock when I saw the report. I knew the report must have been out of date. So fantastic to see the work progressing and the planting actually happen because it's been delayed with all that wet weather. So yeah, fantastic to see something really moving along and look forward to what results. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. So elected members, is there further statements here? No further statements. Thank you. What we'll do is we'll go directly to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on now, another one of our roading projects, Poto Road, phase 1. Councillor Wills is moving this and seeking a seconder for this item. I'm happy to second this. Thank you. The noting of this. So, Joe, thank you.
Thank you. So section 3, as per the map that's provided in the report, section 3 of Poto Road phase 1 is now sealed, with section 2 being in progress as well, and due to be for the seal to be completed prior to Christmas. Section 1, which is the longest section, will be sealed early in the new year. So that'll be after the Christmas New Year break. We do have a issue on this project right now, which has just recently appeared in the past week surrounding budget. And there's a risk of a rather severe budget overrun impacting this project. We're still refining exactly what the numbers will be. We're working through that with our contractors. We believe somewhere in the realms of 300,000 thereabouts. That the result of this is a few different factors, contributing factors. one of which being the earthworks themselves actually taking longer than planned, so a longer burn rate on resource for the project. There's also been additional earthworks which were unfortunately not identified in the initial design, which is a lesson learned for us to go back and ensure that that doesn't happen in future and doesn't happen again, to understand why that was omitted. There's also been an increase in cost in the MSQA, so like the quality assessor costs for the project, and that's due to initially the intention of the project had been to use internal resource for that engineer's quality check role, but that internal resource had ended up actually being resourced full-time onto another project, and so the MSQA support has been outsourced to consultants, therefore also bearing additional costs. There's also been quite a significant increase in the cost of cultural monitoring on the project. And with the project itself, even just in the past month, say 6 weeks, they had identified a midden, and also just as recent as yesterday, some bones have actually been identified on the site. The contractor, upon identification, has worked closely with the cultural monitors, has done everything appropriate and has closed down that area. And there's an archaeologist out at the site today doing an assessment. So everything has been followed as per the appropriate procedure. But unfortunately, these events therefore come with the additional costs and requirements around that cultural side as well, to ensure that we do everything respectfully in that space. We have been investigating just what our next steps will be around the budget itself. So we're going through a value engineering process with our contractors to understand what we can do to reduce that cost deficit, especially looking at that section 1 being the longest seal. It is the best opportunity for us to claw back any overspend. To be absolutely clear though, that's not a case of cutting corners or looking to, provide anything that's below par. And that's something that the team is exceptionally clear on, is we cannot go and provide something that's not to standard for this project. We need to do the seal as we intended to. So it's just looking for opportunities where we can maybe be a bit smarter, a bit more agile around how we do things. There is also the possibility of some funding being available potentially from the Postal Road Phase 2 budget. Is there maybe a surplus available in that project? Maybe, still yet to be fully confirmed, and we won't know until that project is complete. But there could be somewhere in the realms of at least 100,000 that we would hope to work in partnership with MB and have that transferred across to Postal Road Phase 1. So another moving feast as far as the financials goes right now, and it's something that the team are really working through to try and give everyone as much clarity as possible and ensure that we still seal the road as intended. And I'll leave it there, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions for clarification? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the obvious question is, was there any provision in the budget for contingencies, and would this extra cost be such a contingency? And I guess, yeah, as they say on TV, if not, why not? Thank you.
So there was a provision in the budget for contingency. This is additional to the contingency available. So the contingency having already been spent within the project itself.
Okay, thank you. Further questions for clarification? I have a question, and it is in this budget space, so this is grim, but we're going to need to watch this very, very closely. So at the next meeting of this committee, how much more advanced will the understanding be of this budget issue? And will that be the end of it at the next meeting? At what point will we get to knowing? sorry, we're saying 300,000 now. Is it likely to be $500,000 by the time the project is concluded? If the contingencies are all gone, could it be? Sorry, I'm not saying likely. Could it continue to grow?
So there, in all honesty, Your Worship, there'll be the ongoing risk of any unforeseen event or any unforeseen incident now, would be additional cost on top of the project. So bearing in mind that 300,000 is a forecast overrun. So it's not 300,000 that we've gone over budget at this exact point in time. It's forecasting for the remaining works to be completed. We anticipate a 300,000 over. The next instance of this committee, if I remember correctly, it's early February, as I don't believe there's one in January. So by that point in time, I would expect us to have a very clear picture on, first off, what costs have hit us on this project to date, the Portal Road Phase 1, and the costs relating to especially like silvicultural monitoring from a couple of recent events. And I would also expect us to have a very clear picture on what possible funding might be available from Portal Road Phase 2, as that project should be near on completion by that point, if not wholly completed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to that report, I can tell you. Thank you very much. Councillor Wethy, question for clarification.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mee. Just following on from what you're saying, it's very important, Joe, that we get by February a much clearer picture of what potential overrun we're looking at. But could you please also put down for council members a list of funding options to say, well, if we are over by 300 or 200 or 500 or whatever it is, then this is what we're suggesting as option one. We could fund it this way, that way, or some other way, so that we know how we're going to balance it. Because the other way of doing it is just chopping $300,000 worth off the length of the road. But that's a fairly black and white way of doing it. But I'd like to see options alongside the more detailed and more accurate potential overrun figures that you come up with by the February meeting. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question.
Yeah, obviously we're all a little disappointed in the additional cost. I'm just wondering, just to help us understand sort of how this has happened a little bit, where is the bulk of the additional costs coming from? Is it in the additional earthworks, or the earthworks taking longer, or where exactly is the bulk of it? Because yeah, just trying to understand.
The cultural monitoring costs have been quite significant, so that accounts for a fair portion around it. Also, to be honest, it truly is a combination of factors around the MSQA and the earthworks as well.
Okay.
So there's no silver bullet, unfortunately.
So there's no sort of if we just learnt this one thing, we'd have avoided this. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely lessons to be taken from this, and I mean, there's lessons that I'm taking from this as far as even like that the oversight of the MSQA support and the intention of it being in-house, and then unfortunately we didn't readjust our budgets appropriately when that resource changed. And as I mentioned earlier, around the design piece and ensuring that we've got the correct quantities of earthworks defined, or if we can't do that, ensure that we're accounting for that level of risk, ensure that we're actually adding that onto the original budgets where we believe that it might be speculative. So there are undoubtedly lessons to take from this, yes.
Okay, and do you have like a formal process of evaluating those lessons and building them into our processes?
Yeah, as a team, we run lessons learned post-project reviews, where and it will generally be across all components of the project, to be quite honest. And we'll collate the findings, work it through as a group, so that everyone understands what should we do differently, what have we learned from this, and where it is something that's process integral, then we would look to update the procedure, or whether it's the documentation or various things like that. So very much a continuous improvement mentality within the team.
And so do you do that evaluation during the project or only at the end of the project?
We are starting to do them during as well. So we're calling them just project reviews.
Okay.
So yeah, it's something that we're looking to roll out in a team. The team leader within delivery, Simon Ridenclaw, he's really passionate about doing ongoing project reviews with the team as things progress. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. So statements, Councillor Curnow.
Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Wills.
Yes, I was going to say I didn't think I did.
I'm going to make a statement, but I feel uncomfortable making it when Joe was only the messenger. But I'm going to make it anyway. I'm disappointed in the outcome, but I'm not surprised. I've followed this project from when it first started. They started at the far end with the shortest runs. I would imagine, and I'm pretty confident, that the first blowout in budget happened when they were required to meet the first milestone of having spent $1 million before there was a certain date it had to be spent. And if anybody had gone down that road, they would have seen how much excessive earthworks were done on those short spans just to use up the first $1 million. So the budget overrun is not a surprise to me. I asked an engineer, a roading engineer from a different company, to go down that road and have a look at it, and he was surprised at the over-engineering that had been spent on that road. And that's a consequence where we're asking the roading contractor to meet timeframes to spend money, as opposed to milestones of distance travelled and work actually achieved. So I'm hoping that that's a lesson that will be picked up from this. I'm concerned that the contingency disappeared before we got hold of having a comment. To answer the other councillors' comments about knocking $300,000 out of, taking a patch out of the road, the way that they've constructed it, it would make it that we would end up with a metal piece between two tar sealed pieces. And unfortunately, it's not like we can cut the end off on the Poto side and forego the last kilometre or so, which would be a practical or logical outcome if we were trying to save money. It's unfortunate, but they're working back towards Dargaville, so I struggle with that as a practical solution. The other thing is that in the budget, that it's been run at a low budget, and other aspects like the single lane bridges are still in place. So though we're building an 80k or 100k road, they're still going to have the single lane crossings on those roads. So it's not like they can pull a lot more out of what they've got left to do, unfortunately. That the excess waste or excess spending, my apologies, was in those initial months of work. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a disappointing situation that we're in, and I don't expect it's going to improve. I expect it will get worse before we get to the end of this. So I'm hopeful that the team will be able to resolve some of these funding issues as we go forward, and the budgetary issues, so that our ratepayers are not having to pay in any way for this project. Thank you. Further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We'll put this to the vote now. All those in favour of noting this report, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to Poto Road Phase 2. So seeking a mover for this item. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, just before you start, sorry, elected members, I draw your attention to the fact that we have half an hour left for this total meeting before we are due to commence the public excluded workshop at 3:30 p.m. Thank you. Joe, back to you. Sorry.
Right. Thank you. So for Potter Road Phase 2, works are now underway again to complete the design. So it had been delayed due to the geotechnical specialist being based in Auckland. We're now progressing that with local geotech who are able to get out to the area, and they're actually coordinating back to the specialist in Auckland digitally, of course, rather than in person. So this project is now back on track for completion, all going well by the end of the year, as there's not a huge amount of work left to be done. So there's no risk at this point of the funding being rescinded or it not being completed, and MB are comfortable with the progress around that. As mentioned in the previous report, there is potential for there to be a surplus in funding available come the end of this project, and we will know more around that in the next month. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification regarding Poto Road Phase 2? Councillor Weddy.
Yes, I'm not sure, Joe, about how substantive the work is yet to complete this project, but on your figures here, you've got an overall budget of 640,000, spend to date of just over 469,000. So you've only got just over 170,000 left in the available budget. So you were talking before of hoping to have up to 100,000. Do you think that the work you've got left to complete is only going to be about $70,000 worth?
That's a finger in the wind estimate right now from a project manager of there could be an opportunity here. The works remaining are very minimal. So we're very much at the end of the design period. It was just some additional works that we wanted to get done just to improve the integrity of the design. But it's very low key.
Okay, well, that's good. The smaller amount of work, the better, because we're going to need that by the sound of it, all of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? Poto Road Phase 2? No further questions. Thank you. Are there statements here? Councillor Curnow, Deputy Mayor, please.
Just a short statement. Bring it home quickly and bring it home below budget would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement.
Just thanks, Joe, for answering all my questions that I only sent in this morning.
Thank you. Are there any further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now, noting this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, Waipoua River Road. Thank you. I'm happy to move this report, seeking a seconder here. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So happy to confirm that works are now underway and in progress for the Waipoua River Road project. There was a question received in last month's committee regarding one of the kauri trees which was pictured in the report, and the question as to whether or not that was being removed as part of the project. Just to confirm, there is no removal of any trees as part of this project. The picture was there just to illustrate the complexity of the environment. So just to confirm that quite important point. All going well on the project thus far, and we are on track to complete as per the programme. And nothing further. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions for clarification from elected members regarding Waipoua? No questions. Thank you. So statements, of course, it was very good to have the official opening commencement event here for this project, and looking forward to the completion of this very, very soon. So across the summer months. So looking forward to this project. Thank you. Are there further statements? Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Nothing to add, thanks.
Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now regarding the noting of this report, Waipo River Road. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So we're moving on to Kaipara Wharves. I would like to note this report. Thank you. And seeking a seconder for this. Councillor Wills, thank you. Joe.
Thank you. And so I believe everyone will have seen the picture shared by your worship this morning as well of the Pahi Wharf. Work's very much underway in this space now and progressing really quite well. So we've almost concluded the carpentry works, and we started works on the pontoon and gangway this week with Billingham's being able to come up from Auckland by exemption. We are still tracking to complete Pahi Wharf the week running up to Christmas. And so a post-construction blessing is being diarised, a dawn blessing, for the 21st of December at Pahi. So you can all expect invitations to be sent out to you shortly, I believe in the next day or two. Conscious that this will be an event in alignment with the COVID traffic light guidelines. So it will be a maximum of 25 attendees who will be able to attend. So our SVP is really quite critical as well around this. Due to the uncertainty around the future restriction settings for Northland as relates to COVID and the traffic light framework, there's no future opening planned at this point in time. Unfortunately, across Northland, we're seeing a huge amount of impact on all public events, not even just Northland, across the country itself, to be quite frank. But everything from Christmas parades to even the Hunter Visor opening, which was scheduled to have the Prime Minister attend, and we were trying to jump alongside that with also having an attendance at the Pahi Wharf opening to align with her visit up north. But unfortunately, at this point in time, it's just not something that we're able to schedule given the ambiguity around what will or will not be happening for these events. The regatta club itself, even the gathering there, the annual regatta club gathering, at this point in time, it will not actually be able to progress and would only be able to progress should we move into an amber traffic light status, as our understanding at this point. And so again, it's something that's not planned for at this stage. So as a minimum, we are looking to do that post-construction blessing site opening, which you will all receive invitations to. Moving on to Portal Wharf. So in order to progress the detailed design for the wharf, we need to carry out some geotechnical investigations. And until these are completed, the design will not be able to move forward at the rate which we would like. You'll notice in the report itself that the completion of the design phase is now targeting around February for the completion of the design, with construction starting in March. Now, reassuringly, because of the way this programme works, we don't expect that to have an impact on the overall completion date of the wharf itself. At this point in time, we're able to absorb these delays around the design into the programme. STF, who are the contractor on the design, have got a border exemption in progress. It's pending, and they're hopeful to receive that permission to come up to enable them to perform the assessments and progress with the design. Failing that, then naturally the 15th will be the change anyway around that, where they would be able to come up into the district. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So are there questions for clarification here? I have a question. It's regarding Poto Wharf, and it's regarding the original feasibility study for the wharf that was done in 2002, 3, 4. That work included geotech work. Is that being included in the study that's being done now?
Yes, so the consultants have access to previous information gathered. It's a couple of particular piles that we need to do the geotechnical assessment around. two in particular, if I remember correctly, where we don't have the data available for that.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Statements from me. Look, fantastic about Pahi Wharf. I sent a video today to all the elected members, as well as a series of still images. They're also out on social media now, and this includes a video from a drone looking around the site. It really was a complete thrill to see the pontoon in place, and they're putting the piles around it. So the opening official blessing on the 21st is looking very, very likely to be proceeding. So it will be all in place for Christmas. Yay! Well done. Congratulations, Kaiwaka District Council, but extremely concerned about the delays regarding Poto Wharf. And so I'm hopeful that that time delay can be caught up. And of course, I'm hoping that the cost of that additional work that's now having to be done doesn't lead to additional costs in that project. But look, this is great work in any case, the important projects. Thank you. Are there further statements? So at this point, we're going to Councillor Wills.
Thanks. I apologise to Councillor Vincent that I put my hand up just before he would have chosen to speak specifically about Pahi, and I can only focus on Poto. So I do apologise. Disappointment. I've given up going out to the community trying to talk about the Poto Wharf and the time frame because I keep getting egg on my face, so I no longer bother to communicate with them. I'll leave that up to the council official site. It just keeps being delayed, and they're the same reasons, and I understand some of them, but it doesn't mean I'm not unhappy or disappointed. I see now that the start date is no longer January, and realistically we're already looking to move towards next winter. At some point we're going to run out of time. I'm concerned that we don't lose the funding that we've got at this stage, or that funding overcosts mean that we have to significantly change the original project. And on that point, I am concerned that there's a community group that are allowed to have an opinion on what happens in that project, but it's not brought back to council for confirmation. And I ask that to be acknowledged. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Further statements regarding wharves? Councillor Vincent?
No, thank you. I think it's all been said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No further statements at all? No? Once, twice? No? All right, thank you. It's all been said here, and picture paints 1,000 words about Pahi. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Dargaville to Te Koporu Stop Bank, page 99 of the agenda. So this item, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, your hand is up, so you're looking at moving that? Yes? Yes, thank you. Seconder for this, please. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So as we've been developing the procurement strategy for this project, we have experienced a bit of an issue surrounding the availability of machinery in particular in order to progress the investigations phase of this project. Initially, we had forecast that we would be able to access the required drilling machinery in December, so this month, through consultants to enable the investigation. Unfortunately, the market right now is swamped, and we've been told that the earliest they're able to get that machinery available to us will be February. We've looked at alternative suppliers and so on, and yes, unfortunately, it's the same across the entire market. What we have done on that basis is we've reevaluated the plan to understand just what that means for the overall programme. And we've engaged with the Ministry of Business to discuss this as well. What we have agreed is that we would allow for that bit of slippage in the initial investigations to ensure that we do them justice, do them fully as required. So they will be starting in February. with the consultant looking to start some preliminary works where possible without the machinery in advance of that. So anything that can be done from January onwards, we'll be looking to pursue. It does have an impact on the start date of construction, as it will move to October next year as to when the construction itself will start. That's because of the nature of the works. It's just not appropriate to do them in the wet season. But fortunately, what will occur is that wet winter season now will be the time that the project will use to essentially get its ducks in a row and ensure that we have the appropriate consents. It will be an opportunity for us to progress with landowner engagements and approvals and so forth, to ensure that come the October, we're ready to start the physical works. The ministry have been supportive of this plan, and their feedback was that they actually were receiving similar issues from other councils elsewhere as well regarding the accessibility to various different parts of machinery and specialties. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor De Livaris Woodcock.
Yes, I note on page 27 the start date is, I think, a typo error, of course, October 23. But I've just heard you clarify that it's due to start, but may be delayed by October 22, which sounds more hopeful.
Yes, yeah, just to clarify on that, so the construction commencement for season 1 will be October 22, and then there will actually be a subsequent season after that, which will be October 23. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification here? No further questions. All right. Thank you. Statements. Councillor De Livaris Woodcock.
Yes, I'll just keep it brief. Lack of machinery. I hope this is not going to become a refrain we all get used to. But it's extraordinary circumstances for capital works projects. That's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Curnow, statement.
Yes, this is an important project for the Dargwa-Te-Kaupuru area. And obviously it's disappointing that we can't get on with it immediately. But Joe, I was reassured by your description of your conversations with MB, and that they are getting similar feedback from around the country, different councils, and that they are supportive of this new schedule, which actually allows us to do the job properly as opposed to rushing it, because it was definitely going to be a very rushed project up until what you've said now. So yeah, disappointing that we're not cracking on with it, but also heartening that we are going to be able to crack on with it in a better way. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements, elected members? No further statements at this time. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the Raupo upgrade, and I'm seeking a mover for this report. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And a seconder for this. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. Joe.
Thank you. Firstly, if I can just clarify, I think I've received a couple of pieces of feedback regarding the similarity across the reports for both the Dargwa-Te-Kaupuru and then this now the Raupo upgrade. They are individual reports. At this point in time, though, the projects are really quite similar, to be quite honest. They're both in the same stage, and because they're both quite geotechnical based projects, yeah, the challenges experienced by Dargwa-Te-Kaupuru, which I mentioned around the drilling machinery, that too is being experienced by the Raupo upgrades project. So that's why you're seeing the similarities come through in the narratives in the report. Over time, you can expect that to change as they'll both develop their own personalities, let's say. For the Raupo upgrade project, as mentioned, the similar challenge is in place around the drilling equipment. And we've had the same conversations with MB regarding pushing out that initial investigation phase to ensure that we can do it appropriately. Again, they've been supportive of this approach. Where this project varies is that we're actually doing a full revision of the procurement strategy as a result of the challenge around the drilling access. And that's because we realised that whilst the previous strategy around this project was a direct appointment, actually, given that they're not able to provide the machinery in a competitive manner and they do not have history with this project or any significant benefit to justify a direct appoint, on that basis, we'll actually go out with that open RFQ to our panel to open it up and have a more competitive process. So that's a significant variance between the two there. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Elected members, are there questions for clarification? No questions. Thank you. Statements. Councillor Kerno.
Just to note that yeah, it's good to see MB being supportive of the fact that we are caught in a difficult time in the market. Yeah, and I'm happy to hear that we're going out to open market, because it's always good if we can to do our procurement as widely as possible, where it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Jo and her team and all the people that are working on these projects, and just the difficulty, the continuing interruptions and complications and things that are happening. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be going on for some time yet. So so just an acknowledgement of everyone and the struggles that they're having to deal with. And so when we do get some little wins, it really does mean something. So just yeah, just, I don't know, chin up for everybody at the moment, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements here? Quick statement from me, echoing those positive tones. These are very, very difficult times. It's almost like we're at the beginning of a Great Depression or something like that, where all sorts of supply chains are very, very broken. But they will correct, and we're right on track to be delivering with all of these projects. So it's going as best as it can. Thank you, everyone. No further statements? No, right. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the project. So we're now into the financial overview piece of this meeting. And so I'm seeking someone to move this. Councillor Vincent, thank you for moving this. And I'm seeking a seconder here. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. Jo.
Thank you. So as you'll see in the report, we have now annotated it to show where there have been updates from the prior month reading, just to make it clearer based on the feedback received last month through the committee. Other than that, nothing further to add on this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? No questions. It's very simple. Right. Thank you. Councillor Vincent, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to record my appreciation for the time taken just to make that little change, which does make the process more straightforward for us part-timers, I guess. And I did just scratch my head, but that's all good. Thank you.
Thank you. But you have moved it, so scratching your head or not. Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement.
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right, thank you. No further statements? No further statements. Right, we're putting this to the vote now, noting this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. moving on to the program update, which is the final item for today. I'm happy to move this. Thank you. And Councillor Wethy seconding this. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you. Nothing further to add on this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions here, elected members? I think the questions have been covered with each individual report. It's interesting to see the alignment of things and the calendar now starting to stretch out to 2024 with these projects, a long way away. Certainly we have an interesting period immediately in front of us. So if you like, are there no questions from elected members? Yep, so I've just delivered most of my statement there, so I won't repeat that. And I'll hand over now to Councillor Wethy. Thank you for a statement if you wish. You're on mute, Councillor Wethy.
Must be getting late in the day. Yeah, just thanks, Joe, for putting those any amendments to this one and the previous chart in highlights there. It makes it a lot easier to come to grips with any changes, and so that's been a significant step up as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, well done. But again, at the end of the day, this is just a time frame on a piece of paper. It's when we stand at the opening and all cheer and have the community supporting us that we'll get the kick out of it. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very clear. Any further statements? Further statements? Right, putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right. So that brings us right now to the end of the meeting. And just before we close this meeting, normally, of course, we would be saying, well, you know, Merry Christmas, everybody, and good wishes to the team, those we won't be seeing again from other parts of the council between now and Christmas. But we actually have a special and significant farewell today, which is for Joe Reid, who is going to be leaving us with maternity leave, which is a great joy. And Joe, so today is Joe's last meeting with the Kaiwaka District Council regarding this project for now. And of course, with maternity leave, hopefully Joe will return. The role will be kept open for her. So Joe, just wanting to wish you all very great success for your important, wonderful new phase of your life, and thanking you on behalf of the entire council for the great project management work you've done with us and the bridge that you have been between the elected members here and all of these extraordinary externally funded projects. So that's just a quick little statement there from me. I'm actually going to allow elected members to all have a moment here as well. Thank you. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Curnow.
So your approach to project management has brought stability and consistency and organisation to this massive body of work, which, yeah, looked quite untidy there at the beginning. But yeah, your approach has brought stability. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Wills. Statement.
And we only just finally learned to understand what you were saying. So anyway, I'd like to say farewell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson Collins. So I'm just going around my screen. Everyone will get a chance. Councillor Wilson Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, huge, Joe. Awesome. I forgot your hapu because we've only seen you once in the whole time because of all these online meetings. So awesome work. Hope to see you again, and just best of luck with your new adventure.
Councillor Wethy.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well done, Joe. I think, it's not that long ago when the elected member group were getting very, very nervous about all these externally funded projects. We really didn't have a finger on where they were coming from, where they were going, who was going to get them from A to B, and how much money was going to be spent. And I think you've brought a sense of order to this whole process, and your very concise and easily to understand reports each month on each individual project has been a delight to actually work through, and has given us a sense of confidence. So all the best in your new adventure, if you like, having a new baby. I think after a few months after it's born, you'll think that your job at council was a piece of cake. So good luck and have a good Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor De La Varis Woodcock.
Yeah, I wanted to, well, I left it for you to say that, Councillor Wethy, but yes, wonderful. Joe, you've been absolutely marvellous at your project management. And I must admit, when I saw you at Noel Lemmings, when I was getting my mouse, and I saw you had a baby bump, and I was like, oh no! I mean, delighted, but also, like you have absolutely done this such a good, wonderful job. What everyone said is described as a hairy beast, and well done, and good luck with the new exciting adventure, and all the
Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there's two words come to mind for me, Joe, with when I think of you and the job you're doing, and one is trust and the other is reassurance. And I really appreciate that. So I trust and feel reassured that you will make this next delivery on time and under budget, okay?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you all very, very much. That really means a lot. I'm also very glad my camera is off because my cheeks must be scarlet. I'm definitely blushing. So thank you. It's been fun.
All right, very good, Joe. Look, thank you, and good luck to you, and thank you again for everything you've done. So at that point, I'm going to close our externally funded projects committee meeting with a karakia. Kia tōna manaakitanga a te mea ngaro ki runga ki teina tātou ki mehia te hua makihikihi kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, tihei Māori ora.